Discover the incredible journey of the heartwarming plow that transformed farming forever. In the quiet town of Cedar Grove, nestled beneath the endless blue sky, a plow sat in a barn, silent yet yearning to awaken the dreams buried beneath dust and rust. It had tales to tell, stories soaked in sweat, tears, and laughter. For Jake Carter, this plow was more than metal. It was a lifeline to his family's legacy, to memories of planting and harvest, of a father who fought for freedom and a grandfather whose hands tilled the same soil he now walked. But as the weight of the drought pressed down on Cedar Grove, the threat of losing it all loomed like a storm cloud. Jake, 35 and weathered, felt the echoes of history tapping on his shoulder. Every wrinkle on his father's face told tales of resilience from World War II, the sacrifices made for a piece of earth that now seemed fragile against the onslaught of modern greed. The rich sterlings of the town, with their snickers and sneers, saw Jake as a mere obstacle, their eyes glimmering with unspoken intentions. Eager to pounce on his cherished land, summer wore on. The fields cracked and crumbled beneath the sun's merciless glare, and Jake's heart tightened. The laughter of children turned to whispers of worry. Elders shook their heads in despair. "When will the rains come?" they murmured. But Jake found no comfort in their words. Determined, he pulled himself to the barn that evening, searching for solace among remnants of a bygone era. He found it the rusty plow, covered in cobwebs but shining with potential. It felt like destiny as he dusted it off, and with each scrape of his hand against the cold metal, he found pieces of himself, of his ancestry. The memories flooded back. His grandfather's proud smile, his father's guiding hands. Each file against the metal released a spark of hope. It was more than just a tool. It was an emblem of perseverance. Driven by his father's haunting pleas, Jake unfurled plans to gather the town. "We need to unite," he declared, passion fueling his voice. His neighbors, once hesitant, began to believe as he spoke of resilience, urging them to stand against the looming threat of the Sterlings. The words hung in the air, filling the void with anticipation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet as hope blossomed, shadows crept closer. Just when the community began to feel the warmth of solidarity, the Sterlings struck, wreaking havoc on Jake's crops, leaving destruction in their wake. Jake felt that familiar tightness in his chest, the weight of history pressing down. He could not allow fear to destroy what generations had fought for. With grit like iron, Jake stood at the forefront, synthesizing the town's desire to fight back against oppression. The atmosphere crackled with urgency as whispers turned to shouts of rebellion. Would they stand together against the Sterlings, or would they fracture like parched earth beneath a relentless sun? As doubt began to creep back in, Jake clutched the restored plow, its sturdy form radiating the strength of the past. It hummed with the spirits of his forebears as he rallied his neighbors, hoping against hope that Cedar Grove would find its strength once more. Would they weather the storm together, or would their hopes be laid to rest like the fallow fields under the indifferent sky? The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the fields, each sunbeam a reminder of the battles Jake and his ancestors had fought. But now, as he faced his neighbors, a wave of doubt washed over him. Their faces reflected worry, fear etched deeply beneath their weathered skin. Would they really unite, or were they too beaten down by years of struggle? "Listen," Jake said, raising his voice to break through the murmurs. "We cannot let their greed crush our hope. This land has given us life and joy. Together we have the strength to protect it." A brief silence followed as his words hung in the air. Then came a rustle at the back of the crowd. Old Mrs. Henderson shuffled forward, her cane tapping out a rhythm that echoed in the stillness. "My husband and I worked this land until we could no longer rise with the sun," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I've seen the Sterlings come and go. They take with one hand while they smile with the other. They don't care for our roots. Jake felt his heart swell. Exactly. They see profit where we see family. It's time we show them that Cedar Grove stands strong. As determination sparked in the crowd, a murmur of agreement began. People shared glances, nods of solidarity. A younger man stepped forward, his brow furrowed. What do you propose we do, Jake? They have resources, power. We're just us. Yes, but we are united, Jake put forth, amusement at the thought of their apparent insignificance dancing in his chest. Let us gather our community. Let us bring everyone together, families, friends, even the old-timers that hold stories of this land's glory. If we make our voices heard, they can't ignore us. The sun sank lower, casting a warm glow as whispers of plans formed. They began to strategize. Gatherings would be in the local barn, emphasizing history, tradition. They'd share meals, stories, dreams for tomorrow. An invitation would be sent out, a call to all who loved the land, to stand against the looming threat. Weeks slipped by, and the once quiet barn transformed. Neighbors filled each corner, laughter lightening the atmosphere, and hopes intertwining with every conversation. Jake could see it, a community rebuilding itself brick by brick. Concerns shifted to ideas. Faces brightened, voices grew stronger. Then came the day of their unified stance. A town gathering to confront the Sterlings, boldly set for the open square, where the sun would shine bright over their fortitude. Laughter and chatter filled the air, camaraderie swirling around. As Jake stood at the center, he felt a bond with every person present. They were not just individuals. They were a force, a wave ready to crash down on any fear that lingered. But then, as they raised their voices, a rumble of discontent rippled through the crowd. Off to the side, the Sterlings had arrived. Their polished suits shone under the sunlight, but a chill crept in, tightening Jake's heart. Would they still be able to stand firm, having come so far? Jake turned to his community, eyes darting across familiar faces, seeking that spark of courage he had seen grow each week. He inhaled deeply, gripping the plow one last time as he prepared to face the threat head-on. Could unity drown out the power of greed? Jake took a step forward. It was time to speak up. But what would he say when the moment of truth arrived? Jake stepped forward, his heart pounding like the drum of a marching band. The crowd quieted, a tense hush wrapping around him like a warm, heavy blanket. He scanned the sea of faces. His neighbors, friends, and strangers, each with a story tied to the land they stood on. The Sterlings loomed nearby, their perfectly tailored suits a stark contrast to the work-worn denim and flannel surrounding them. Today is not just a day of confrontation. Jake began, forcing his voice to steady. It's the day we reclaim our spirit. The words escaped him in a rush, urgency slicing through doubt. This isn't just about land. It's about our homes, our families, our futures. He looked at Mrs. Henderson, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. He felt a surge of strength as he thought of all the barbecues, the harvest festivals, and the countless stories told around fires on starry nights. The crowd responded with low murmurs, an undercurrent of anticipation rippling through them. Jake allowed himself to lean into that energy. The Sterlings want to take what's ours. He pressed on, gesturing toward their glimmering presence. But they cannot take our roots. They can't take our memories or our community. Just then, one of the Sterlings, a tall man with slicked back hair and a smug smile, stepped forward. It's simple, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. You don't stand a chance against the kind of investment we bring. You're out of your depth. A murmur of outrage erupted from the crowd. Jake could hear his neighbors begin to voice their displeasure, fists clenching and voices rising in solidarity. Enough, he called, raising a hand for silence. He steadied himself, pushing his doubts aside. Look around you, he urged, sweeping an arm wide to encompass the assembled community. Look at the strength that stands here today. We have been through storms, droughts, and trying winters. Every victory has brought us closer. We are not alone. Together, we are greater than any threat. Cheers erupted around him. Unity surged through the crowd, lifting spirits and solidifying resolve. He locked eyes with a few faces: his father, his childhood friend Mark, the teen who had just started working at the farm. In those moments, they weren't just neighbors. They were a family forged in shared struggles and shared victories. But he could see the Sterling's confidence wavering. The smugness cracked slightly, and the tall man exchanged a glance with others, unsure now. "We demand you respect our way of life," Jake continued, feeling the rhythm of his speech echo in the growing enthusiasm around him. "We refuse to let greed take our pride. Cedar Grove will fight back, and we want to do it in secret. We'll do it together, openly, with our heads held high." As he finished, a roar of agreement surged through the crowd, voices crying out in unison. The atmosphere prickled with raw energy. Suddenly, clear across the square, children tugged at their parents' hands, their laughter a beautiful contrast to the tension. The sight of the next generation filled Jake with a bittersweet warmth. What kind of future would they inherit if they didn't stand firm against this threat? The Sterlings exchanged worried glances, their facade beginning to crack. But just as Jake felt that turning point shift towards triumph, he heard a sharp whisper from the back. "They're bluffing." Jake's heart dropped. What other secrets lay hidden among the Sterlings? Was this just the beginning? Or were they preparing to unleash something even more cunning? As adrenaline coursed through him, he steadied his gaze on the Sterlings. The real battle was just beginning, not just for their land, but for the very essence of Cedar Grove. He took a breath, preparing for whatever came next. Would the tide turn in their favor? Or would hidden betrayal surface, setting them back once more? Jake felt the crowd's energy swirling like a storm, but the whisper lingered in his mind, taunting him. "They're bluffing." It echoed in his thoughts as he stepped back to join the others. The exhilaration of his speech still coursed through him, but doubt crept in like a shadow as he scanned the faces around him again, familiar, strong, determined. Yet, uncertainty began to set in. Just how far were the Sterlings willing to go? Were they truly just investors, or was there a darker intention behind their polished smiles? Suddenly, a voice broke through the gathering clouds of worry. It was Mark, standing next to him, his eyes fierce. "Jake, we need to prepare. They won't just walk away. It's not in their nature." He grabbed Jake's arm, grounding him. "Have you thought about what comes next?" Jake nodded slowly, realizing now that this day was merely the beginning. It was one thing to rally the community, but entirely another to defend it. "We need a plan, a strategy to show them we're serious," he replied, determination replacing doubt. Mark's face lit up. "We can organize a town meeting, bring everyone together, share ideas, fight back with our strengths." "That's great," Jake said, his mind racing. "Let us involve everyone, the farmers, the merchants, even the kids. We'll show the Sterlings we are Cedar Grove, and we won back down." As they plotted, the rest of the crowd began to echo their momentum. Voices sprang up with excitement, suggestions pouring in like a fresh spring rain. Some talked of gathering supplies, while others wanted to draft petitions. Everyone had an idea, each one a building block for hope. But just as enthusiasm filled the air, Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "What if we're not strong enough? What if they have something we can't combat?" Her words hung heavy for a moment, a palpable fear spreading through the crowd. Jake's heart sank again. Would they be risking everything for a fight they couldn't win? "Listen," Jake called, his voice strong once more. "Fear is what they want us to feel. We'll turn that fear into action. If we stand together, we will find the strength we need. But we can't do it divided. We must trust one another." Quiet murmurs faded, replaced by nods of agreement as eyes once again lit with determination. A shiver ran through him. The fire was rekindling. And then, just as the mood lifted, a sleek black car pulled up at the edge of the square, the sun glinting off its polished surface. The crowd turned, the energy shifting into uncertain silence. Out stepped a woman, the head of the Sterling family, her expression unreadable. Her gaze scanned the crowd with the precision of an eagle, taking stock of their resolve. A chill coursed through Jake. What was she doing here? Wasn't it enough to send her hired men to intimidate them? Jake, remember, keep your guard up, Mark whispered. This could be a tactic to sow discord. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, Jake replied, clenching his fists. The woman raised a hand, calling for quiet. You all have spirits that shine bright, she began, her tone smooth but chilling. But I'm here to remind you that light is sometimes best extinguished before it can cause further disruption. The crowd shifted uneasily. What did she mean by that? Jake felt his pulse quicken, and a sense of urgency gnawed at him. This was more than just a battle for land, it felt like a battle for their very identity as thoughts raced through his mind. He grasped for the words that might light their fight anew. But could he summon the courage to confront this looming darkness? With her icy smile still intact, she paused, eyes locking onto Jake's. Let us see how far you're willing to take this. Jake felt a surge of warmth mixed with dread. This was not just a confrontation. It was a declaration of war. The way forward was uncertain, and the shadows were growing. What secrets did the Sterlings hide, and how far did they intend to go? Jake steeled himself for the storm on the horizon. He would not back down. But would Cedar Grove withstand the true test of their spirit? The silence after her chilling words hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping around Jake and the crowd. He felt the weight of her stare, unyielding and cold. In that gaze, he could see the hard truths that came with power, the contempt born from a world where money ruled, where people like them were mere collateral. That he glanced at Mark, who was already scanning the crowd for reactions. Faces twisted in worry, hands fidgeting. Fear seeped through the crowd like a dark ink blot on a canvas. Jake took a deep breath, his heart thudding in his chest. It was time to break that silence, to turn fear into something more potent. Mrs. Sterling, he called, forcing his voice to be as steady as he could manage. You speak of extinguishing our light, but I can assure you, Cedar Grove will not be easily snuffed out. We have roots dug deep into this land and into each other's hearts. This community is stronger than you realize. Laughter erupted among his neighbors, hesitant yet hopeful. Mrs. Sterling's smile remained, but he felt a shift in her eyes, a slight narrowing. It didn't matter how put together she appeared. Jake was ready to expose the cracks in that polished exterior. Remember this, she replied, her easy tone dripping with disdain. Strong roots are often the first to be pulled up. You're fighting against resources that will see you crumble. It's only a matter of time. With those words, Jake saw a flicker of uncertainty on some faces around him. This was the moment to rally them together, to reinforce their shared bond. If we stand together, we're stronger than any corporation. We can build a home more vibrant than any deal they can offer. This isn't just about land. This is about who we are. His conviction blazed through his words. Inspired murmurs began to ripple through the crowd again, gaining momentum. As resolve solidified in their hearts, Jake could see fear transforming into courage. He locked eyes with Mark, who nodded approvingly, a hint of a grin breaking through the serious facade. They were going to fight back. Mrs. Sterling, sensing the shift, pursed her lips. Let us be honest, Jake. You're trying to avoid seeing the truth. You think you're united, but cracks appear very easily under pressure. I promise you, you'll find yourselves alone. Then let us put that idea to the test, Jake shot back, his pulse roaring in his ears. We will hold that town meeting. We'll invite you too. Let Cedar Grove's voice be heard. Give us a chance to show what we can do together. Meeting you in the open will let our spirit shine. He felt the energy morph again. Excitement sparked among the townsfolk, feet stamping on the ground louder than before, fueled by determination. A chant began to form. Cedar Grove, Cedar Grove. Jake felt his heart soar. He turned toward the woman, challenging and unwavering. You might want to prepare for the fight of your life. Mrs. Sterling maintained her polished facade, but the tension in her shoulders told a different story. She stepped back, glancing at the crowd as if searching for cracks in their unity. We'll see about that, she said, before turning, retreating to her car while leaving a ripple of uncertainty behind as she drove away. Jake's heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and fear. They had taken a stand, but the battle was just beginning. How would they prepare for the fight ahead? Would Cedar Grove's spirit continue to shine against the looming shadows? With the crowd buzzing around him, an idea sparked. "We'll need support from every corner," he said, raising his voice over the murmur. "Let us gather tonight. We'll meet in the old barn, share our ideas, our fears, our hopes. Let us prepare to show them who we really are." His words were met with loud applause and cheers. The energy electrified the air, a stark contrast to the chilling threat that had just lingered moments before. But as excitement filled the square, lingering shadows still loomed. What tactics would the Sterlings employ to crush their spirit? And, as the meeting approached, Jake wondered if they would uncover hidden strengths within their community or face unexpected betrayals. With uncertainty brewing like an approaching storm, the question hung heavily over Cedar Grove. Could they truly withstand the brewing tempest together? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Cedar Grove buzzed with restless energy. The old barn, once a place for clumsy dances and laughter, was transforming into both a refuge and a rallying point for a community facing down the looming threat of the Sterlings. Jake stood at the entrance of that wooden structure, nerves bubbling under the surface. The crowd filtered in, faces illuminated by the soft light of lanterns strung across the rafters. Murmurs filled the space, yet a shared determination knitted them together. Each newcomer carried a weight of hope mixed with fear, a potent blend that crackled in the air. "Everyone," Jake called out, lifting his voice to cut through the low din. The chatter faded, and all eyes turned to him. The warmth of their gazes ignited something inside him. "We're here to stake our claim. Not just on this land, but on our future. Each of you has a story, a reason to fight. Let us make sure we hear them tonight." He stepped away from the door, inviting others to share. An elderly woman rose, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of the rough-hewn table. "My family has lived here for generations. This place, it's our home. I've watched my neighbors grow, my children play. We can't let them take that away." A round of applause erupted, bringing a smile to Jake's face. The barn pulsed with affirming energy. One by one, community members stood to recount tales of love, heartache, and solidarity. The stories varied, but the heartbeat of their connection beat steady and true. Mark took a turn, his voice steady and clear. "We built this community together, through sweat and tears. Let us not let a corporation pull us apart. We have to strategize how to combat what's coming. They won't expect us to fight back like this." Jake nodded, heart swelling with pride as Mark spoke. But as the mood grew ever more passionate, unease crawled over Jake's skin. He understood that all this hope, this fire, could just as easily be extinguished by the ruthless ambition of the Sterlings. Hours went by as ideas were tossed around like autumn leaves, some vibrant and bright, others fragile and whimsical. Plans began forming into a pointy structure, something they could actually wield against their adversaries. Then a voice echoed from the back, breaking the rhythm of applause and laughter. It was Lynn, a woman with a reputation for having the sharpest mind in town. "What if someone inside the Sterling Company is ready to help us? We need to leverage that weakness." The room fell silent, hope mingling with anxiety at her suggestion. Whispers of dissent floated through the gathering like a restless breeze, challenging everyone to think about trust and betrayal in a way they hadn't before. "Are we prepared to take such a risk?" Jake asked, scanning the faces around him, revealing his own hesitation. What if that trust is misplaced? What if they're just feeding us false hopes? The room tensed as everyone considered this. Suddenly, his heart stuttered, that familiar flutter of fear surfacing. Would they be forced to stand on a precipice fighting a battle without full certainty? With the weight of expectation heavy in the air, it was clear they must finish the night strong. But what path would they choose? "Let us take a vote," he suggested, excitement bubbling back to the surface. "If you want to seek allies beneath the surface, raise your hands." As dozens of hands shot up, Jake felt overcome with both fear and exhilaration at the heights they were about to scale. But what if this decision drew them deeper into the world of the Sterlings and further away from everything they held dear? The questions lingered long after the night ended, settling like a thick blanket of fog over Cedar Grove. What were they prepared to risk? Would they stand united or fracture under pressure? The next morning, Cedar Grove woke to a sky overcast with gray clouds, as if mirroring the weight of uncertainty that lay heavy on everyone's minds. Jake stepped outside, feeling the chill of the air bite at his cheeks. He stretched his limbs, trying to shake off the remnants of unease from the night before. They had been so full of hope, yet every heartbeat came echoing back with doubt. Was risking trust a path to liberation or one that would lead to heartbreak? The barn stood like a fortress in the near distance, drawing him closer. As Jake approached, he noticed a small knot of people gathered at the side, their voices muted but urgent. Curiosity spurred his steps, and he pushed through until he found himself at the fringe of their whispered conversation. There's been word going around, he heard Mike say, his voice tinged with desperation. Someone spotted a Sterling representative in town yesterday. They're getting ready to make an offer to someone. Jake felt a rush of dread. He stepped forward and asked, "What do you mean? Is there a deal being made behind our backs?" The group turned to him, faces twisted with worry. "We don't know the details," Lynn replied, her eyes wide with concern. "But if they're trying to negotiate with someone here, it could mean they're not as confident as they appear. We can't let them divide us." Something crisp and bitter tangled in Jake's throat. The looming threat felt so much closer now. They had thought of the Sterlings as an enormous monolith, bullying them from afar. But now they were lurking here, within the community's grasp, ready to sow division like weeds in a field. "Right. We need to find out who they're targeting," Jake said, his voice firm, though his heart raced. "We can't let fear tear us apart. We've got to stick together." The group murmured their agreement, a small flicker of resolve igniting amid shared fear. Without hesitation, Jake suggested they launch their own investigation. "Let us pool our resources, talk to the locals in town. We need eyes and ears everywhere." With the plan set into motion, Jake felt a surge of purpose flood through him. They dispersed, splitting up to cover more ground. The sun broke through the clouds, casting warm rays across the town. But Jake still felt the weight of apprehension settle. Could they really trust the whispers of the town? Or would betrayal come knocking too? As the day wore on, the community buzzed with renewed energy. They spoke to shopkeepers and cafe owners, gathering snippets of information. It was exhausting work, but every little detail felt critical in this precarious dance of resistance. Towards dusk, they regrouped in the barn, and the mood was noticeably lighter. Stories were shared about potential allies, people who had expressed sympathy for their plight. A plan began to take shape, a network of whisperers, people sympathetic to their cause. "I overheard someone mention a Sterling meeting at the diner in town next week." Lynn chimed in, her expression grave. "If we can get someone there, we could overhear plans. Find out what deal they have in mind." Everyone nodded, but Jake felt a tug at his gut. Was this too risky? What if they were bound for disaster? The gravity of the looming choices wrapped around him, tightening like a noose. "We should discuss this before we proceed. Let us consider the implications first." As they debated the ethics of eavesdropping and weighed the risks, a doubt crept in. Would their pursuit of the truth land them in a trap? As they strategized, the stakes felt insurmountable, and he couldn't shake the fear gnawing at him. Just then, a loud crash came from outside the barn, jolting everyone into silence. They exchanged glances, a shared fear washing over the room. What could that mean? Jake felt the chill of anxiety roll down his spine. He rushed to the door, urgency propelling him forward. Light streamed inside again, but it was the shadowy figure standing in the doorway that caught his breath. What did they want? And how would it impact the fragile web they were weaving? As he gathered his thoughts, uncertainty loomed like a storm on the horizon. Jake's heart raced as he stared at the shadowy figure. It stepped into the light, revealing itself to be Sarah, her face pale and panic-stricken. Fear flickered in her eyes, and Jake felt the air in the barn grow heavy with dread. Sarah, what happened? He reached for her, aware of the way his voice wavered. I saw a Sterling representative, she gasped. He was on Main Street. I swear, he was talking to someone from Cedar Grove. Her words tumbled out in a rush, each syllable laden with urgency. Jake exchanged glances with the group behind him. The air crackled with tension. Who? He asked sharply, the question hanging in the air like a storm cloud. I didn't get a name, but her brow furrowed as she struggled for clarity. It was suddenly. The barn door creaked ominously behind them. Another presence loomed, and the group turned to find Mike striding in, urgency etched in his features. We need to act. Now, he panted. What Sarah saw, it could change everything. Do you know who they were meeting? Jake pressed, trying to maintain control over the rising anxiety. No, Mike admitted, shaking his head. But if Sterling's making connections here, it could very well be someone we trust. Jake's stomach twisted at the thought. This was more than a game of whispers now. If Sterling was negotiating behind their backs, they were in deeper trouble than they anticipated. Everyone, gather around, he commanded, his heart pounding. We need to map out a plan. I want us to investigate this meeting without arousing suspicion. If they're trying to pit us against one another, we can't afford to let them succeed. They nodded, taking their places in a tight circle, their faces drawn and serious. The stark reality of their situation hung over them like the gray clouds that had lingered since the morning. I heard about a local farming conference coming up, Lynn said quietly, uncertainty swirling in her eyes. If Sterling is reaching out, it might be worth going undercover. We can blend in, ask questions, gather intel while appearing innocent. That's risky, Jake said, even as hope flickered inside him. This could be their opportunity. But if we do it, we stand a chance. We have to choose our spies wisely. There's gotta be someone who can help us, Mike chimed in, leaning forward. What about the old-timers? They know this town inside and out. They might have a clue about who this rep spoke to. Just as relief began to settle in, a cold shiver coursed through Jake. But what if someone overhears us? What if it leaks back to Sterling? The gravity of Mike's suggestion spiraled into Jake's mind. The old-timers could protect them, but they were also deeply invested in the community. Distrust could spread like wildfire, igniting fear where they needed solidarity. We can't be afraid of those whispers, Sarah interjected, her voice steadier than before. To gain the trust of the town, we have to tread carefully and stand firm against any divide. Jake nodded, grudgingly admiring her resilience. But was it enough? His heart raced with the weight of his doubts that as they strategized, planning different roles and points of contact, the air inside the barn crackled with determination. The sun dipped low in the sky, leaving a golden hue across the wooden beams, but a gnawing fear remained within Jake's chest. Their safety was tenuous. The stakes seemed to climb higher with every word they spoke. Okay, let us meet back here tomorrow after the sun sets, Jake said, sealing their huddle with a nod. We'll be ready for what comes next. Just then, another thump echoed from outside, followed by raised voices. The group shared panicked looks. Tommy, what's happening? Jake shouted, rushing toward the door as he flung it open. A scene of chaos unfolded before him, a gathering crowd, fingers pointing, whispers rising like smoke. What the hell is going on? He muttered, stepping forward to better glimpse the chaos. That a confrontation was brewing, and the uncertainty was more than palpable now. It was front and center, threatening to unravel everything they had fought to hold on to. Who was at the center of it? What motives were fueling this turmoil? The uneasy feeling swelled inside him, and as he prepared to dive into the heart of the conflict, he couldn't shake the sensation that everything was about to change. Jake took a deep breath as he stepped outside the barn, the cool evening air stinging his cheeks. The gathering crowd was a mix of familiar faces from Cedar Grove, each one painted with concern and confusion. Whispers danced around him, growing louder with every second. What's going on? Jake asked as he pushed his way through the tight circle of people. Tommy, a local farmer with thick arms and an even thicker beard, stood at the center, his face twisted in anger. It's them again. Sterling S. trying to scare us off our land. Someone has been spreading lies about our crops. He shouted, his voice thick with emotion. What lies? Sarah called out from beside Jake, her eyes wide as she joined him at the front. They're saying that our produce isn't fit for sale, Tommy replied, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. That it carries some kind of blight. They're trying to ruin us. Jake felt a surge of panic. This was the kind of disruption they couldn't afford. If Sterling S. representatives were smearing their reputation, it could destroy everything they had built. Have any of you heard from them directly? Jake tried to keep his voice calm, but the tension in the crowd was palpable. No, a voice echoed from the back. But they've been seen pretty close to the old mill. We all know what they're doing. The situation was escalating, and Jake could sense fear bubbling to the surface. Old grievances painted their faces. Mistrust carved deep lines on their foreheads. Listen, Jake shouted, trying to regain control. We can't let them divide us. They want us scared. They want us to fracture. If we dig our heels in now, they can't scare us off. Slow murmurs filled the air, and slowly, heads began to nod. That's right, Sarah added, stepping beside Jake. If we confront this together, go to that conference armed with our facts, it'll show them that we're united. That they can't drive a wedge between us. Tommy calmed, his expression shifting from rage to determination. What do you suggest, then? We need a plan. We collect samples. Gather evidence that our crops are safe. Jake replied, feeling the spark of hope ignite again. We present our case. Together. But it's gonna be a fight. We're gonna need everyone on board. As the crowd began to mutter among themselves, a flicker of determination sparked in their eyes. Jake felt a swell of pride for the community that was uniting against a common threat. Let us organize a meeting. Everyone should know what's happening and what we're up against. A sudden voice rang out from the back, trembling but fierce. But what if they decide to retaliate? Jake turned to see a young farmer, uncertainty etched into his features. What if they come after us? The question echoed in Jake's mind. Could they really withstand whatever Sterling threw at them? He looked around the group, seeing both fear and steely resolve. I want to pretend it's not a risk, he said carefully. But we can't afford to hide. If we don't stand up for each other, we lose everything. Together we can face down anything. The crowd murmured louder now, a building tide of agreement. Jake could see the hope flickering back. As the voices swelled with renewed courage, he felt something shift within himself. Perhaps this was the turning point they needed. Maybe it was time to rally their community in ways he hadn't dared consider before. Suddenly, something in the distance caught his eye, a familiar car creeping down Main Street, unmistakably emblazoned with the Sterling logo. Heart racing, Jake stepped forward again, adrenaline surging through him. There they are, he exclaimed, pointing. We need to confront them now. With every pair of eyes following his gaze, tension thickened the air. What would happen when they met the enemy that had stirred their lives into chaos? Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would change everything. It was a gamble that could either tear them apart or bind them together forever. And as they prepared to stand their ground, one question loomed large: would they find the strength to show Sterling that they wouldn't back down? The air crackled with tension as the familiar car pulled to a stop at the edge of the gathering. Jake's heart raced, a wild drumbeat in his chest as he scanned the faces around him. Determination mingled with fear, a combustible mix that could either ignite their courage or dash it against the rocks of uncertainty. Stay close, he shouted, his voice rising above the murmurs. He felt the energy shift, a palpable charge coursing through the crowd. They needed to confront the Sterlings not just for their own peace of mind, but for everything Cedar Grove represented. The car door swung open, and out stepped Mrs. Sterling, her presence imposing even amid the scene's chaos. Jake straightened, ready to face the formidable woman who had reared her head over their community. Her gaze swept the crowd like a hawk sizing up its prey. Jake Carter, she began, her tone smooth, yet sharpened by an undercurrent of menace. I'd advise you to think carefully about how you proceed. Jake took a step forward, urgency propelling him. No more threats, Mrs. Sterling. You've undermined our hard work and reputation. We're here to stand up for our community." The crowd pressed closer together, a wall of support behind him. Jake could see it in their faces. The fear was still there, but now they were ready to embrace the defiance brewing within them. He felt a rush of belonging, of purpose. Cedar Grove was more than just land. It was family, history, and rich dreams. Mrs. Sterling raised an eyebrow, but Jake saw a flicker of uncertainty. "You think numbers can intimidate me? I assure you this will only end in disappointment. Not if we fight together." A voice from the crowd called. It was Tommy, stepping forward to join Jake's side. "Our work stands for something far bigger than you realize." The crowd erupted in cheers, voices swelling in rhythm with the pulse of solidarity. Laughter mingled with shouts, and those wild hearts of Cedar Grove surged forth. Jake seized that spirit, gripping it like the lifeline it was. "This isn't just about the land, but our identity. We're united by love, by stories, and by our common dreams. No corporation can tear that apart." "Enough." Mrs. Sterling's voice came cutting through like a knife. "You'll come to learn that the game has already been decided. Your time is running out. Decided or not, we won't give in." Jake retorted, his voice reverberating with grit. "We're taking a stand. We'll gather evidence, show this community's worth if you tarnish it. You can't erase us that easily." With each word, the embers of their resolve glowed brighter. He scanned the crowd again, seeing hands clenched in fists, voices raised high. Breathing in the strength around him, he inspired hope with renewed vigor. Let South show Cedar Grove's heart fierce, unyielding, and proud. Mrs. Sterling's smile faltered for just a heartbeat, revealing the slightest crack in her facade. A flicker of doubt crossed her polished exterior. "You think this will scare me? You'll see very soon how misguided this is." Misguided? Or just determined to reclaim what's ours? Jake felt the surge of courage carry him above the threshold of doubt. "You may have money and power, but we have community. Let us expose your tactics and embrace this challenge together." The crowd surged with energy, a wave of conviction crashing over them now, a moment forged in the fires of history, family, and hope. Each voiced opinion, every story that had been shared in the barn, bound them like threads woven into a tapestry they all cherished. With a deep breath, Jake felt the ground beneath him come alive. "We want to meet with your team at that conference. Show us the truth," he demanded, his voice ringing clear through the tension. "Fine," Mrs. Sterling replied, regaining her resolute composure. "But I warn you, if you think this little charade will manipulate outcomes, you're sorely mistaken." "Then let us see who's mistaken," Jake shot back, eyes blazing with newfound determination. As she got back into her car, a sense of exhilaration swept over the crowd. The tension dissolved into a powerful sense of unity. They had stood their ground, confronted the looming threat, and emerged stronger than before. "We need to prepare," he said, drawing their attention back to strategy. "That conference is our chance to shine a light on the truth behind their lies." The energy surged anew, their spirits ablaze with possibility. Voices rose in collaboration, and as plans unfolded, Cedar Grove was no longer merely a place on a map. It was a force to be reckoned with. Days turned into sleepless nights as they gathered information, neighbors sharing details while bonds grew tighter, a family rallying together for what mattered most. Jake felt invigorated. Memories of his father's heart, the sweat and toil to maintain the land, fueled his drive. Finally, the day of the conference arrived, bathed in the warmth of an autumn sun. Cedar Grove wore its determination like armor. As they assembled, the chants resonated through every attendee who believed in their cause. A statement was ready to be made. Jake stood at the front, alongside familiar faces, ready to advance against the tides of adversity. This was their moment, one they had worked for, and together, they would turn their aspirations into reality. "Cedar Grove," Jake shouted, the words echoing through the hall. "Together, we are unstoppable. Let the truth guide us, and let our unity show them our strength in friendship, in community, and in love for this land." Today, we claim our identity back. A thunder of applause washed over them, and as Jake looked around, he saw resilience ignited in every heart. The Sterlings may have tried to dismantle their bonds, but together, they had only grown stronger. Cedar Grove was ready, not just to fight, but to flourish. Would they face challenges ahead? Absolutely. But with each other at their side, they were prepared to embrace whatever lay ahead as a family, eye in the face of the storm. They had transformed into a beacon of hope, shining bright against the shadows that once loomed large. Cedar Grove was alive again, a community reborn, determined to stand its ground. The fight wasn't just for crops or land. It was for their hearts, their collective spirit. Together, they were invincible. And in that unity, they found their true identity. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and get this inspiring tale out there. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Your support makes all the difference.